All right, it's 5:05, so I'm gonna go ahead and we'll get this meeting started. But feel free to introduce yourself in the chat so that we know who's here. Thanks for joining us. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the community agreements in the chat as per usual. Do this. Thank you, everybody, for being here for our first virtual award night of the year. Tonight, we're going to be talking about local school council elections. And there is a recording in progress. You should have heard that notification. But just in case you didn't, we are recording this meeting so that we can share it with folks who weren't able to be here. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Just a moment. Let's see if this works. Okay, present. Okay, I hope everybody can see my presentation. Can I get a thumbs up or a yes or no if you can see?
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Then we'll get started. Okay, here we go. Yeah, thanks for everyone for being here. So this award night is on the 16th. Usually they're on the 1st and 15th of every month, but because yesterday was MLK Day of Service, we pushed it till Tuesday. So we really appreciate everyone being here for this one that's like a little odd as well. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping. Here are our community agreements. I just put those in the chat as well, so you can read them there. We're going to be present, be compassionate, be generous, and be brave. So just don't be afraid to ask questions and make sure that everybody has a chance to speak who wants to. And yeah, just we're excited to talk through some stuff. So just review those at your leisure. And you can ask questions in the chat. We'll also have a Q&A for the second half of the meeting where you'll be able to ask questions out loud, both of the Alderwoman and of our special guest from CPS, Jose. So yeah, there will be an opportunity for that at the end of the meeting, but you can also throw questions in the chat during the meeting. And we also have the Q&A in Zoom where you can type out your questions for us to look at later if you don't want to share them during the meeting. And then you can review our brief agenda here at the bottom of the slide. We're going to start with a presentation about local school councils and local school council elections. Then we'll hear from Leni about her experience on a local school council, and then we'll do the Q&A. But with that, I will pass it over to Jose. Thank you so much for being here. We're excited to hear from you.
Thanks, Audrey. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone's staying safe and warm. It's very frigid weather. Thank you for taking the time to listen a little bit about our upcoming local school council elections. You may be familiar with local school councils, the term, and the fact that they're unique to Chicago. We're the only city that tries to empower communities and our parents, our staff, and our students with this model of civic democracy. You know, the way that our city council works with the mayor, or Springfield with the governor, our Congress with the president. We want these stakeholders to work with the principal and move our schools forward. So, with that being said, I'm going to go over some basics about the upcoming elections, and then we'll wrap up with how to apply. During the elections part, we'll talk about what LSCs are, you know, the general roles and responsibilities around them, who serves on them, who was eligible to serve on them, and some other aspects of LSCs and our LSC ecosystem and why different schools might have a different model. We'll talk about election judges and the need for that, important dates on for this election cycle. And we'll wrap up with how to apply for a candidate as a candidate and how to apply as a judge, which will be very important. So thanks. Overview of LSCs. So in the city of Chicago, local school councils serve as a governing body for each district managed school in the Chicago public school system. It's comprised of parents, community, educational, and student members. LSCs serve as an important vehicle for participatory democracy, providing a wide variety of stakeholders with an opportunity to make important decisions about how students will be educated in their respective communities. Thanks. So major responsibilities for local school councils include LSCs approve the school-based academic plan, which is called the Continuous Improvement Work Plan, or CIWP for short, CWIP. Local school councils approve the budget. They select and renew contracts for principals, meaning they hire on new principals or decide to renew the contract for the current serving principal. LSCs conduct an annual evaluation of a contract principal's professional practice and performance. And most local school councils meet once per month. So that's another requirement. They should have they should strive to have monthly meetings. Who serves on LSCs and what makes you eligible to serve on LSC? So important, students are members of local school councils, and high schools have 3 student members. This has been recently increased from 1 student member that was able to share their experience with the student body. 3 student members makes it more of a social cohort that gets to share out more information to other students. In elementary schools, 1 student member for schools serving 7th and 8th grade is a member of the LSC. They must be in 6th grade to run for a local school council. So if they run in 6th grade, they should be in 7th grade by the time they're serving, so that we only let 7th and 8th graders serve on the councils. Parents serve on the local school councils. Most importantly, they make up the bulk of the membership. Biological or adoptive parents, step parents, or legal guardians of a child enrolled and attending the schools. These are not temporary guardians, but permanent guardians are eligible to be parent members of our local school councils, and they cannot be employed by the district, so that their only stake in their service is the well-being of their students, of their child's education, and that of other children, of their peers. Staff is allowed and staff are members of the LSC. Teachers serve on local school councils. Teacher members must be employed and assigned a majority of the time at the school that they're serving at. The staff position must require a teaching or other professional certificate, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a classroom teacher, although that becomes the majority of the teacher members that serve. But it's any staff that requires a teaching professional certificate. They're usually paid from the budget account 51100. For non-teacher staff, or not the staff CPS that are not teachers, are also have representation on the council. They're employed or assigned a majority of the time at the school that they will be serving as a LSC member at. The staff position must not require a teaching certificate. And they're paid from the budget account 52100. As an example, I was a former LSC member when I was a special education classroom assistant. Other people can also serve on LSC. They don't have a teaching certificate, but they're staff at the school. Community members are also stakeholders and serve on the LSC local school councils. They must reside in the school's attendance area or voting district boundaries. They must be at least 17 years old. They may not be a parent. They must not be a parent or a step parent or legal guardian of a child enrolled in the school, and they cannot be employed by the district. Their stake and their service is the well-being of their school community. We saw the need for that during COVID health crisis, and of course, being from Chicago, we know that the violence in our streets is a health crisis as well. Within our local school council ecosystem, we have what are called appointed local school councils, ALSCs, and board of governors, BOGs. Schools created by the board that have a specialized student population, an educational focus or curriculum, or the school design, have appointed local school councils, ALCs. Military academy schools created by the board that have a military science curriculum have an appointed board of governors. These ALSCs and BOGs, unlike the traditional LSCs, include members on the council that include advocates such as a community activists, business leaders, former senior military officers, or other professionals who are at least 18 years of age and possess skills or expertise in the field of the school's focus. So very few schools, but some do have these other specialized governing bodies. How to apply for the LSC, usually from a traditional school. Nomination forms can be picked up from the school you intend to run as a candidate for, and at the Office of Local School Council Relations. You can also pick up candidate packets from us. Alternatively, interested parties can go to cps.edu/LSC. Go to our website to download nomination forms. You can download our forms to print out. To complete hard copies of the nomination form, the completed hard copies of the nomination form should be submitted to the school where you intend to run for office. Or you can drop it off at our office, the Office of Local School Council Relations at 2651 West Washington Boulevard. By Thursday, February 8th, 2024, before 3 p.m. And thank you, Audrey, for sharing the chat. You can also pick some up at the 48th Ward office. And our staff is trying to get these out to our local libraries and park districts, especially those that are in close partnership with our schools. So applications to fill out currently vacant seats on an LSC are available year-round and accepted on a rolling basis. We are definitely pushing these out during our election cycle, where we will have a fresh slate of a new term of service. But we always have vacancies throughout the school year that pop up now and then. So always be on the lookout if this is something you're interested in doing in the future. An important pitch for tonight. If you can please help us get the word out. Election judges are needed during this election cycle. Requirements to serve as an election judge. You must be at least 18 years old. You must be willing to serve the full day of the election. That's from 5:30 a.m. until all the votes are counted and materials are secured. I believe that's usually around 7 p.m. time-ish. Duties of election judges. We usually would like to have 3 to 4 election judges per school, depending on the size. It's possible to do it with 1 or 2. That's not optimal though, so we would love as many election judges as we can get. Confirm each voter's eligibility. The election judge must confirm each voter's eligibility, and they must secure the voting space. They must tally all votes for the candidates, and they must secure all voting material at the end of the day. How to apply to be an election judge. Applications may be requested by email. You can email lscjudge@cps.edu, or you can visit the LSC Judge website to request the link. And it must be completed. And it is best to complete the online application after receipt within 14 days, or the link will expire. Applications must be submitted by 3 p.m. On February 21st, 2024. Election judges receive a stipend of $275 for working the election day. They are required to take a mandatory training, and training for judges start at the end of March through April. Please try to make one of those trainings before the election day, and then working the full day will get you the $275 stipend. For the school year 2024 LSC election, these important dates to keep in mind. The candidate application period opened on October 16th. It will close on February 8th, so that's not far away from now. Aquarius season's right around the corner. Judge application deadline to apply to be a judge, and please help us get the word out, will be by closing on February 21st. So please let them know to check online, Google us, local school council judges. LSC elections. The election days themselves are held on April 10th for elementary schools and April 11th with high schools. This does coincide with a report card pickup day, so they are hard to miss. Student election polls. Elementary election day. For elementary schools, the student elections are usually held on April 8th, 9th, or 11th. So please encourage students to both run and vote. And high school election days are also held on either April 8th, 9th, or 10th. Again, the 11th, 10th, and 11th coinciding with their respective elementary or high school report card pickup days. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks very much, Jose. That's some great info. And these slides we'll make available to everybody here today, but also to our entire constituency through social media and our newsletters. So you'll be able to revisit all of this and help get the word out about applying to serve on an LSC and applying to be an election judge. And with that, I will pass it over to Alderwoman Manaa-Hoppenworth.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jose, for being here, and Audrey for bringing us all together again. You know, the 48th Ward has 5 fantastic public schools: Senn, Gowdy, Haight, Pierce. We've already adopted McCutcheon and Swift, and we know that each of those schools have at least 40 different languages spoken in those schools. We come from a very diverse ward, and with that, I would just encourage anyone who values diversity in the ward and inclusion and community to consider running for this very hyper-local office where you are going to work with not only community members, but administration in those schools and with the students that are actually from those schools. This is a very new thing in LSCs where you have more student representation in these very hyper-local bodies where you are making huge decisions that impact the quality of life in those schools. I am a product of Chicago Public Schools from the South Side, South Chicago, Buckingham School, and my kids also went to school in the ward at Pierce School, and eventually went on to Jones, where I served on the LSC. And you know, it wasn't so long ago where we didn't have LSCs in place in Chicago. When we first brought this system in, there were so many people who applied for these really important positions, but you know, more and more it's getting more challenging to get people to run. In fact, the year that I you know, served on an LSC at Jones in 21, and it was very difficult actually to fill so many of the vacancies. And when we have vacancies, the issue is that when important votes come up, it's impossible to pass, you know, things that are really important when we can't meet quorum. You know, you have to have a certain number of people at a meeting in order to actually hold that meeting. So if you have a curiosity about it, I would encourage you to, you know, to ask questions now or to reach out to us later, or if you want to be in touch with a representative who is already in the ward serving, we would be happy to connect you to those folks, or even the principals at these schools, because it really is a very important community service that you could provide if you could spend a little time. You know, the things that I worked on at Jones included the the DEI committee, for instance, and the health and safety committee for another instance. And at that time, the students were very engaged about what does health and safety mean to them in the school. And so there were many community meetings around what does it mean to have an officer in the school? Is it really necessary? And could we use those resources for other things besides a security officer? Could we use that money, towards and resources towards, for instance, social workers or those who can provide more mental health services? Because we were, struggling with COVID and we still are. So again, I would consider, anything that's important to you in your community at large. Those students are talking about the same issues, but in their buildings and every day. And so it's a very important position. Please consider running. And again, thank you, Jose, for joining us from CPS.
Thank you again for having me. My pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you very much, Lenny, and thanks to you both. And from here, we will go ahead and move on to the Q&A. And so the way we'll do this is you can just raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll stop sharing in a second so that it's easier to use or to see the hands. But raise your hand if you have a question and I will call on you. Or if you don't want to ask your question out loud or can't for some reason, you can put it in the chat and I will switch between the two. If you don't want your question to be addressed during this meeting, you just want us to have it on record and answer it later, you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom. So those are the three options, and I'm going to stop sharing. Okay.
One other thing that I will point out, thanks, Audrey. One other thing that I will point out is that if you or someone wants to serve as an election judge, that's super important as well. We want all of our elections to be transparent, and we want to hold the integrity of every single election in the city of Chicago, starting from our most hyperlocal elections in our schools. So again, if you are 18 years old and you can devote your day towards making sure that we can secure our elections in our schools for LSC elections, please, step up and let us know if you have any questions about that too.
I do see a question in the chat from Justin saying, can the election judge application be emailed out too? And yes, so when we do a recap of this meeting in our newsletter where we share the slides and share the recording and all of that good stuff, we'll make sure that all of those resources are linked and accessible. All right, any other questions that anybody wants to ask?
I was wondering if you could speak on your experience before you came into this position. You were also on an LSC, weren't you?
I was on a local school council. I was elected in twice. I was the non-teacher staff member. I've been with CPS since 2015. Um, I kind of saw the council was a good body to advocate for community integration, and it was having important discussions around community safety. And then COVID hit. And it became a body to discuss all manners of things of how to respond as a community to that crisis. Generally, I found that a useful body to feel connected to the city's response and to be able to learn quite at high levels what was going on in the school community, what people could tangibly be advocating and organizing around. So I found the experience so valuable that when I heard about this office, I worked hard to try to fill this role because it's something that I felt that, I saw this office, yearning to rationalize LSCs across the city around the COVID issue, as so many government bodies were trying to. But I also felt that this was one that really empowers every local stakeholder. It gives a platform to really see horizontally across a large plane, and you can appreciate that same um, perspective at many stratospheres of government service. So I'm really proud that we also empower students now, or student bodies, to participate in this with us, so that they see. Um, well, one of my experiences working in CPS is that usually students that are despondent or disconnected are usually quite disappointed in some adults in their lives, or adults in general. They don't think we have the world quite figured out, or doing well by them. So participate in something that they see is productive, and see adults working together well, I think is empowering to them, and to all of us, to have that optimism. So that was my experience. That's why I like doing what I'm doing here.
Thanks, Jose. And I know that there are questions in the chat. Maybe you can address some of them.
Yeah, there's a question about signatures. Do you need signatures to apply for a local school council?
No, it's not like another government elected body. You just need to apply. Um, and if you meet the eligibilities, you're a candidate in the race. Um, can the election judge application be emailed out too? As Audrey said, those emails and those links can go out, and the whole application will be online.
Are there any other questions about LSC elections, how to apply to be an election judge? Yeah, Aubrey, you can go ahead and unmute.
Thanks. I don't, I, as somebody who facilitates a whole lot, I always want people to have questions, and I don't think I have a lot of questions. But wanted to not be completely silent, and just acknowledge, appreciate the information so far, I think has been helpful, which is partly why I don't have a ton of questions. I also used to work as a community and partner in schools. So like on the experience side, feel a little bit more plugged in. And so the logistics are helpful. But just wanted to share, I'm very glad that I was able to join this tonight, because I do my runs a few times a week past Sen. And I didn't realize that somebody that I used to work with when I was a community partner is now the principal there. And so I don't think I think I thought somebody else was principal there, and I don't think I would have necessarily gotten this update if not for being here. So appreciative of both the information and that reigniting of that connection.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for chiming in. Yeah, I appreciate it. I guess in true ward night fashion, I also want to leave space for people to ask other questions, just in general, about things that are going on in the ward. We want to make that time available. So if there are any other questions, thank you again, Jose. Feel free to stay on in case there are any other LSC questions, but if not, we might just be answering questions about stuff in the ward, so totally up to you.
I'll be off camera, but I'll be here in case anything comes up.
Thanks, Jose. I also want to mention that, schools and the zones around schools, you're Aubrey, you're talking about running in the ward, past schools, and that's really it. We want all of our public ways to be safe. And of course, when there are schools, it's a matter of how are students able to get to school safely. And each school has their own traffic safety plan that they work out with the community and also the Alder's office, and also, perhaps CPD, just to make sure that we're all on the same page about traffic patterns, so that we keep our kids safe, because the 48th Ward is a very pedestrian friendly and very bike friendly ward. Also schools in the ward like Sen offer a great public space opportunities for folks to come and walk their dogs, or play in the lawn. It's really a treasure, and we're very lucky that we have so many great, not only great schools and buildings and spaces, but also the principals that work in those schools. So I do want to shout out to the principals who, including Principal Diggers, who's at Sen.
Yes. Oh, and kind of in the similar vein, I think we just learned today that Sen is going to be hosting open basketball courts on Thursday evenings. So that's another great example of Sen being available to the community, which is a great reason why the community should be involved in those decisions. All right, any other questions about LSE stuff or just about what's going on in the ward? It's the first community engagement meeting hosted by our office in the new year. So we're excited to hear from folks. Justin's asking if Sen has an open swim night.
Right. When my kids were younger, they used to go to Sen for the open swim night. And so I have to check, actually. I think with COVID, they changed their schedules. We did get to tour, and the pool is beautiful. We had to figure out what that schedule is, but Audrey, we should find that out and see. There are very few pools in the 48th Ward. We're still fighting really hard to get a pool at the Broadway Armory. Previous administrations have worked with our Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky on securing funding towards that end. So if we can get the schedule for Sen, that would be terrific. We'll add it in our communications in the future.
Yes, definitely. Great question. And when we find out, we'll make sure that it goes out in our newsletter or our socials or both. So yeah, just keep an eye out. And yeah, Aubrey, go ahead. Non-LSC question is totally fine. If you want to put it in the chat, you can, but also feel free to unmute again.
Thanks. There's a question kind of specifically for you, Lenny, I think. But I have heard a little bit about a city council resolution around ceasefire resolution for Palestine, I think next week, but have just seen kind of minimal information about that, and just wonder if you could kind of speak to like what's on the table, what does that vote look like, whatever else you want to share. I'm most interested kind of in the logistics and hearing things verbally instead of trying to find out a whole bunch of information online.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the topic. And Audrey, maybe while I'm speaking, we could share, any kind of communications that we've posted about like recent events and or the ordinance itself, which might be helpful for people to read. So there is a ceasefire ordinance that is that I have co-sponsored along with Alder Daniel Espada and Alder Rosanna Rodriguez to call for call for peace in what is happening now in Gaza. So the reason for this is because it's a moment where we can't not say what we value, and we value human life. We have many, not only Jewish families in the ward, but also Palestinians, and we have people who live in the ward who care about our neighbors. And so the point of the ceasefire resolution is to follow along with the UN's recommendations to provide humanitarian aid, and also to call for a solution moving forward. Really, we need to do all that we can in any capacity, and right now it's putting forward our values. I hope that helps to start a conversation right now, or you can ask other questions as Audrey is putting more links into the chat.
Sure. So what I just put in the chat is a link to the statement that we put out kind of more generally in response to anti-Semitic and anti-Palestinian hate incidents in the ward, but it does mention the ceasefire resolution as well. It would take me a little bit more time to find the best link to share that has the actual resolution language, but that's a good idea, and I can make note of that so that we are sure to share that on socials or in our newsletter soon. But yeah, that's our most recent statement that we put out publicly on socials and in our newsletter about the ceasefire and, our values around all of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Aubrey. I also wanted to put out just an open invitation for anyone to come with me to City Council on full City Council meeting days, because that's another way for anyone to participate. We have schools, groups, and advocates come, but individuals are also welcome to witness, anything that we're talking about. Not only at full City Council meetings, but also any of the committee meetings that I go to, of which I serve, on the Public Safety Committee, Economics, Public Pedestrian Traffic Safety, and others, Environment. We really would love to have more engagement and to hear from you. And really, that's my job, is to take your concerns with me from the 48th Ward to City Hall. And what we're doing in City Hall, and bring it back to the ward and show how it's going to help people in their daily lives, what we do.
I'm going to go ahead and put our, general email address in the chat. And this is a good address to email. I was specifically thinking if you have more questions about how to attend City Hall and City Council meetings and committee meetings. I think it's just generally open to the public, but if you do have any questions, you can send them here.
The other thing that happened in the ward in the last week is we had 2 fantastic in-person town halls about the development of the land underneath the L tracks. So earlier last year, the engineers discovered that the embankments underneath the newly constructed L tracks, the old embankments weren't worth saving. So they took the embankments down, and they discovered almost 1.5 miles of land that can be repurposed, from Ardmore all the way to Lawrence. And we invited folks in. And if you missed it, there are links that you can listen to because it was live streamed. We invited folks to come and to meet the architecture firm that is going to be leading on these conversations and the design of what's happening under the L, to show you the possibilities and to engage with everybody about what they think should be under there, because it's it could be used, for instance, people will say parking immediately, but then also there's a possibility of using it for athletics, tennis courts possibly, or pickleball court, or a dog park, or how can we use it as a greenway? How can we ensure that each of the train stations, they have a like um, a reflection of what the community is all about in the colors that are used, or the art pieces that might be proposed, or the murals, or any kind of markers, historical markers, or green plants. So that was the idea, just to show people maps of what's possible. Also to show a great overview of the ward in terms of the amenities that already exist, and how is it that we can bring more development that isn't producing redundancies too, if that makes sense. How can we work with the small businesses so that they have more opportunities to show, to invite people into their businesses, whatever it is that they have. And so if you were there, we would love to hear from you about what you thought about the meeting, your experiences, or maybe you have ideas that you want to talk about now.
Justin is asking if a dog park was mentioned.
Yeah, I think that there were opportunities for people to put on the board what they wanted, and dog parks were definitely included. We only have one official dog park in the 48th ward, and we are a ward that loves our dogs. So we'd love to see more of that underneath the L track. So yeah.
Let me see if I can find the specific email address where people can send their own feedback and suggestions, because then you can be another voice in the pro dog park camp, Justin, assuming you are pro dog park.
Yeah, so the idea about the meetings was that we would invite folks to propose any dream that you might have, because in the 48th ward, we're a very condensed ward, and there haven't been very many opportunities for us to do major development. And this is a very unique thing that we're going to do. We've never done this before in Chicago, like so much land underneath the L. So there are going to be challenges as well as opportunities. So those who live or use or go to any businesses around the L, we would love to hear from you, or if you walk the ward, or if you exercise around the ward. I think about during COVID, I went to the cemetery a lot right down the street to, just to get away and to take a walk, or I went to the lakefront. But what if this space was available during COVID times? What could it be where people can find a public space in the heart of our ward, really, that's close to transportation? What would you like to see? And Justin is saying maybe like a mini lakefront trail with exercise options and a dog park. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I went ahead and put that email address in the chat so that if ideas are coming to mind that you want to email directly to the folks at RPM, you can do that. And then I also put the links for the recorded meeting, and then also the presentation, and we'll continue sharing those on our social media accounts and newsletter. So you can find them there too.
And Justin is saying he has a new puppy, Audrey. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking that we should have him screen share this puppy's face.
Maybe we should start like a community section in the newsletter where people can send us pictures of their dogs. Okay, so another question from Aubrey, where are we in the timeline of the participatory budgeting process?
Yeah, so right now we're collecting those who want to participate in participatory budgeting, something that the 48th Ward has not done in the past. And we're excited to do that. Jorge is going to come on and actually, we're scheduling something for a ward night coming soon, right, Audrey? To have a whole ward night around participatory budgeting.
Yeah, definitely. I know Jorge's super excited about it too.
So please stay tuned. We would love to have your input if you want to be involved in that as well. If you have an idea now, please share it with us. So participatory budgeting is the process that we're going to use with you, those who live in the 48th Ward, to talk about what we will do with our aldermanic discretionary funds, of which we will have $1 million plus to spend in the next year around infrastructure. So let us know what you think. You can also say what's on your mind now. We welcome it. Otherwise, email Jorge at the48thward.org and we'll get back to it.
Yeah, so I think last year Jorge had already started accepting suggestions and input about what our infrastructure funds should go towards. So I know that, yeah, Jorge can definitely speak more to that, but in terms of where we are in the process, we are in process and that we are accepting ideas. Yeah, we were excited about the 49th Ward's participatory budgeting process too. We've definitely, for one thing, we saw that they had a super cute participatory budgeting logo just for the 49th Ward, which we took inspiration from. So you'll see the 48th Ward PB logo on our some of our previous communications and our upcoming communications. And it's cute. I can't really like, I don't have anything to share right now, but you'll recognize it. It's like a P and a B with a little smiley face underneath.
One of the things that alders used participatory budgeting for is to definitely engage folks who don't normally engage with their ward office, but we'd love to have more young people, ideas, those who have lived in the ward for a very long time, seniors, and those who are just joining, or who just moved into the ward with your fresh ideas. But one of the things that alders spent their money on often was bike lanes. And we're really hopeful now because Chicago has made a commitment to create a network of bike lanes across the city of Chicago. And we're hoping to get more connection, not only north and south, but east and west. So that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about. Who's going to fund that? Is it going to be the city, or is it up to each of the alders to do that? And I hope that is a combination of both, so that we can get a bike grid that that can actually promote safety, not just for bikers, but also pedestrians and cars.
All right, we've got just a few minutes left before the end of the hour. So, take some time to throw some questions in the Q&A if you want us to have a record of them for later. But we've also got time for a few more questions right now if anybody has any about the LSC or otherwise. Yay. Thank you everybody for joining. I guess we can wrap it up here. If that's all right with you, Leni. All right.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks for another great meeting. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the newsletter. Audrey and her team. They work really hard to fill it with a lot of relevant stuff and fun stuff too. And ideas are always welcomed. You know, we want the newsletter to be useful for you all. And share this link when it's available, because we want more people to hear it and to think about running for LSC. Think about running, especially if you've never run before. It's a great way to get involved in your neighborhood in a very truly meaningful way that will help so many in the building, but also in the community at large, and truly, you know, across Chicago. You know, um, you you won't know until you actually try. So try it, or give us a call and ask more questions, because we would love to see so many people running for LSCs across the 48th Ward and the city of Chicago. Thank you, Jose, again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. And we hope to see you at the next one, which will be February 1st, which I believe is a Thursday. So look out for details about that.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm going to save the chat and then stop recording.